Welcome to Superhuman Selling. I am so excited for today's interview because today I am joined by my dear friend, my client, our consultant, Mary Van Dorn, the founder of Speak Easy, Speak Bold. And if you want to become a phenomenal public speaker, if you want to communicate more powerfully than ever before from stage, whether that's in the boardroom, on an actual stage, with people you need to influence in your life, right? Your spouse, your partner, your kids. You want to learn from Mary. So, Mary, I am so thrilled to have you here. You are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things speaking, presentation. And so, I would love if you could start with what inspired you to help others become powerful public speakers.
It probably started years ago when I was teaching night school, and I started very young, and my first 2 classes, my mentor was somebody who'd been teaching these programs for 20 years, and the second we always did surveys at the end of the class, right, and he taught 1 out of 8 nights, and it was on mortgage banking, so there was a lot of formulas and ratios and numbers, and it was a pretty dry topic, and those are the 7 nights that I taught, and he taught the sales, which is really exciting, right? And, that survey after the 2nd month, this man put down, "Sal was fabulous, but Mary needs more energy," and I was reading it, and I'm like, I had to turn this into him, and I'm thinking, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get fired. I'm never gonna be able to do this again." And he read it, and he looks at it, and he goes, "That's a bunch of New York language, New York City Italian language," and he tore it up in front of me, and he goes, "I've been doing this 20 years. Don't even listen to him," and he literally threw it on the floor.
Hmm.
And that was such a boost of confidence for me. He says, "You will get better." He goes, "I have every confidence in you." And that was so huge to me because I really wanted to share the knowledge I had with the class. And they were large classes. They were probably like 80 students, and I was all of 23. So it was a little bit intimidating, but it taught me to not worry about that one individual that's in the class because that man has long forgotten me. And why should I have carried that with me moving forward? So I really appreciated that. And then as I started to share the knowledge in the class, I learned how I have to make this interesting for them. They're going to fall asleep. This is a night class, right? So I started to incorporate stories, like personal stories of clients I had worked with and how we got past certain situations in the finance industry. And I saw the difference it made the in my audience at that time of how they understood. And I learned later that when you incorporate a fact into a story, people are 22 times more likely to remember it.
Hmm.
That was pretty significant in that class.
Interesting.
For
So you have to
the
wrap the fact in a story,
story
and
and
people will
know it.
remember it.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Huh. So I had to tell a lot of stories to get facts across that class. But it was fun. Then I went into more of I had my daughter, my
Mm.
firstborn, and I thought, "I'm not going back into an office. Like, I am not doing 40 hours." I was committed to not being a stay-at-home mom, but figuring out a way that I could do my job from home and I could raise my daughter. And so I started a contract business at the time, which today we would call it more of a remote l learning or remote working, but I did contract work for banks and mortgage companies. I did underwriting, I did training, and doing that, I became even a better presenter, but then I wanted to be really good at what I was doing because now I was having to go out and kind of sell myself, and before I'd been all in admin. So I went and joined a Toastmasters group to start out with, and I did that initially, and I thought, "I really like this." And then I figured out that my contract business was making good money, except I noticed that the people in sales were the ones making all the money. Like, they were making 10 times as much as I was. So I was like, "All right, I gotta change this up." I know more than any of these people going out there. So taking my knowledge and then going into the industry, real estate industry, and speaking in front of I would go into big offices and do presentations there. But then my real goal was I joined the associations that all the realtors belong to, and I promoted events there, and I emceed them, I got in front of them, and I would have hundreds of them there,
Mm.
and it might be something like it wasn't even all about me talking, but it was me bringing in guests that were super interesting to them, it was knowledge that they needed, but I was emceeing the event all day, so I was in front of them for 6 or 8 hours, and it was my picture on the side, it was my banner, and it gave me such credibility in the industry that even if I wasn't working with them when we had a deal that I was introduced to them, then it was like, "Oh, yeah, I know her, and I know what she knows what she's talking about." So that is how I grew my business exponentially,
Mm,
and I learned the power of getting in front of large groups of people.
yeah. I wanna pause on that because I think that's so important, and in our community, working with a lot of sales professionals and entrepreneurs, people often ask, "Well, like, what event should I go to?" And I love going to events, I think that's important, but you wanna be on the stage. That's always what I think about. You wanna have it be your event, you wanna be on the stage as often as you can, even if, to your point, you don't have to be the one presenting all the time, but if you can be introducing other people, asking questions, engaging, that's part of the power of podcasting, having your own platform, right? It creates opportunities, it creates connections. And I want to ask about something you said earlier about the gentleman in the class who gave you the brown story. So, speaking to the critics, writing for the critics, this is something that I think we often do, even sometimes unconsciously. And I found myself, especially earlier in my career, doing this where as I transitioned out of corporate into full-blown entrepreneurship, and I thought about how I used to make money, which was a lot of corporate presentation, which we still do quite a bit, but it was very corporate feeling. So, you're kinda in a box in terms of what you're speaking about, and I wanted to talk about things like spirituality. I wanted to talk about things like wealth energetics, and every time I went to speak or write about it, in my mind, there was someone who wasn't even a real person, but like a fictitious person, and it was a man in a suit who was going to be my client, but he was judging what I was writing, and so I would restrain myself from saying what I wanted to say. I would hold back from actually talking about the things I wanted to talk about because I was afraid of judgment from someone who honestly didn't even exist, and so I found that the more I've given myself permission to actually say what I wanna say and lean into what I wanna say, like, clients come, money comes. It may not be expected or you may not know where, but the right people come. So I'd love for you to speak to that for everyone here. If we're putting together a presentation for a boardroom and our brain goes to the one person who's gonna have something critical to say, or maybe putting together our speech and we think, well, what if people think I'm crazy or what if this doesn't land? Like, how do we get past that and how do we speak our truth with less concern for what other people are gonna say and think?
I think this is super important,
Mhm.
and I think that's one of the things I learned in your community, in the superhuman selling, is that we have to speak our truth. We have to go speak from our heart. When we are in front of a group of audience, and you can look out, I don't care if there's 50 people there or 200 people there.
Yeah.
There is 1, 7, 15 people in that audience that absolutely needs to hear what you have to say. And the other people, they just don't matter.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was early on, I was on a stage, and there was probably about 200 people in the audience, and the man that invited me to come was a regional manager for this company. He sat in the front row, and he had his phone out like this, and he was, like, going the whole time, and I'm thinking, "Dude, you invited me here. Like, you're not setting a good example of being attentive to the person that you hired to come here."
Mm.
And I had to obviously let it go and just get through it. And at the end, you have a table in the back, and people are coming up talking to me, and he walked up to me, and I thought, "Mm, mm." And I say what I wanna say to him, like,
Yeah.
"Just be a little bit more respectful next time." And when he walked up, he said, "Mary, thank you so much," and he shook my hand, and he goes, "I can't tell you how grateful I am for you being here. I could not stop making notes the whole time you were talking." Oh, my. So don't judge the people that are in your audience. It doesn't matter. They could roll their eyes, and you might think, they don't roll it," but they could be saying, "Oh my god, I know that feeling." You don't know, so don't judge your audience
Yeah.
because you just don't know, and people in the audience are there to hear you for a reason. They came into that room, and I know when I go to a presentation, even sometimes I think, "If I just get one thing out of this presentation, it's worth it. I'm glad I
Yeah.
came," right?
Yes.
You don't have to get 3 hours worth of stuff. You need 1, 2, 3 golden nuggets that you can take with you.
Mhm. It's so true. So paying attention to how we may be prejudging people or just even putting something on someone, assuming something that's not even true. So would you encourage people to walk into every presentation just imagining it landing, like, incredibly powerfully with their audience, seeing people engaging, seeing people really moved by it? How does someone mentally prepare to deliver a really powerful presentation?
I think that pre-work before you go in is super important. I'm also a big fan of getting your heart rate up or doing some dance or some mind games or some movement or something because when you move your body and your blood flows, you are naturally going to bring down your tension. The stress
Okay.
is gonna come down.
Yeah.
So that's super important. And yes, like you say, if you can just imagine the outcome that you want is
Yeah.
huge. And then you're there to share your message,
Mm.
right? And you're to share what you know, what is passionate about the organization or what you're sharing. The thing is, actually, it was a nun that taught me this, and she said, I was at a fundraising event, and the keynote speaker, I was on the board of directors for a nonprofit, and the keynote speaker at the last minute wasn't able to present. She actually got sick and she was in the bathroom. She's like, I can't go on. I can't go on.
No.
So this nun who was involved with the organization came over to me and she said, Mary, we need you to do the keynote tonight. And I'm like, do I get any prep time? It worked out fine. But I said, okay, I got to get ready for this. I need some time. And she said, Mary, because she knew my heart with the organization. And she said, honey, when your heart is on service, you can't be nervous. And it's like,
Mm.
you're right.
I love that.
It's going to work out. It's so true. If you
Nice.
think it was, it's- so when you think of that, when you're going on, it's like you're never on that stage for yourself.
Mm.
You really aren't. You're there for the audience.
Yeah.
You're there to present on behalf of your organization.
Yeah.
Or in that case, it was for a nonprofit that I was passionate about. So
Yeah. I remember hearing that piece of advice, not from a nun, from someone else years ago. But that phrase, and it was said a little differently. It's hard to be nervous when your heart is on service. It's carried with me so powerfully. And I think I don't know if it's John Maxwell who I heard this from, but I remember hearing from a great leadership coach about behind the scenes on a stage. Like if you're about to walk out on that stage and you're feeling the nerves, you're feeling the energy, which we all do, right? Whether it's again, a boardroom or like my first presentation was the back of a Mexican restaurant at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night to 3 people who didn't want to be there. And I was still just as nervous as sometimes I feel now when I'm stepping on my biggest stage. But to actually think about one person in that audience, and you don't need to know who they are, but just to imagine that by probability, there's people in that audience who are struggling with really challenging things in that moment, whether it's a health crisis, a marital issue, something going on, a financial thing, and to really say, hey, if I can just focus on uplifting this person for the time that I'm up there, if I can just make an impact in this one person's life, then it's worth it. So do you do something similar?
absolutely. And I always tell my speakers too, and that I don't like them to use that word of nervous. You are excited.
I love that.
And I think that really changes your whole thought process. I am excited to get out there and present this. I'm excited to get out and talk to that one person that really needs to hear this message. And when you go step on stage knowing that that person is out there and I'm here for them, I think it changes the whole dynamic.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
I want to hear from your perspective. So we've got a lot of listeners who are in sales, corporate sales, entrepreneurs. What is the biggest mistake that you see people making in their sales presentation? And I know there's a lot, and I know I've probably done all of them too, but I want to hear what do you see that's the biggest mistake, that if people could just change this one thing, it would transform their results?
They need to ask for this. Ask for the sale.
Just easy.
Flat out. They need to ask for the
sale.
sale. So many of us will present and they'll tell all the great qualities of their product or their service or whatever, and they're very happy on stage and they walk out and they never ask for the business. And then they can't figure out why people are not lined up at the table. It's like, he didn't ask.
It's just that simple. Why do we not ask?
I think sometimes we don't want to be salesy on stage and you think, well, I'm up here and I don't want to be able to say, no, they're here. And we've talked about this before. If you don't give them the opportunity to buy, you're doing them a misservice because they're here to learn about what you have to sell or provide or whatever it is that you're doing. And if you don't give them that opportunity, it is a lost opportunity for you, but more important, it's lost for them. They came here for a reason.
Yeah.
Don't think about it as, oh, I'm here selling. No, they want to know how they can work with you. They want to know how they can get a hold of it. So you have to have a call to action.
Yeah.
Sometimes a couple in there, depending on how much time you have and how you lay out the presentation.
How can someone ask in a way that feels really powerful to them on stage? So I know that it's going to be different for every presentation, but what if you were maybe helping me right now structure my presentation and I've got to talk and I'm going to go on stage and talk about she sells and superhuman selling? How would you help me put together the ask that I give on stage in a way where feels good to me, and it also moves people to action.
Well, I think one way that people get really comfortable with initially is that when you present testimonials, because you can say, we have this program and here is so and so.
Yeah.
And she's going to talk about how it changed her life and how, you know, she used this product or used this service, et cetera, and how she's grown her career or she's whatever it is. But when they see the testimonial, well, we're going to believe that more when it doesn't have to be live. It could be on a video or what have you, but you can show that how your service has been used a couple of different ways.
Mm.
And then it kind of creates like sort of a transition or a bridge into if you want the same results as Elise.
Yeah.
Just come join us at the back of the room. We'll sign up for this or what have you. But I think that's the easiest way to get into asking for the sale.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And again, like you said, stories sell, right? So you have that story, that transformation that's going to speak to people. I want to ask one more question before you share how people can connect with you and work with you further. But so as we step into the identity of being a public speaker, I shared just a little bit earlier, like my first speaking engagement, 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday night, back of a Mexican restaurant. It was for a wonderful sales manager named Van Davenport. So if he's watching, I want to give him a shout out. He gave me a chance to come in and speak to his team. And I think I had to beg for it. I called him like 10, 15 times. And he finally said yes. This is early in my career. I didn't have any speaking experience. And, to go from that to now being a well-paid keynote speaker and traveling the world doing it, I remember I had to just decide that I was a speaker. Like, no one came and gave me credentials. No one said you're good enough. And I think that's how it is with many things in life. And we were having that conversation here yesterday with the consultants that at a certain point, you decide that you're a speaker. You decide that you're a mentor. You decide that you're a coach. And then people will mirror that back to you. But what would you say to someone who's maybe watching us talk or listening to you and there's something on their heart where they know they have a message and they watch other people on the big stages and they say, I know that I can do that too. I know that I have that calling, but maybe they haven't given their first talk yet and they're questioning, who am I to do this? What would you say to someone who's thinking that?
Well, I think it's important when you decide that this is something you want to do, that you have to embrace who you are and what your style is. You can't just emulate other people because you're never going to get comfortable in that niche.
Yeah.
I worked with a gal who, she's very strong-willed, very, I think you'd have to say almost masculine. Like she was just in her zone and she was going to be speaking on behalf of this very large organization, had invited her to speak. And they sent her the terms, et cetera, ahead of time. And she's like, Mary, I'm kind of worried about this because they said one of the things that we have to make sure is that there's no tattoos showing. And Jen had sleeves, both arms. And she goes, should I wear long sleeves? I mean, how am I going to? And I said, no, let me talk to them. Let me talk to them. Because she was her own brand. And so I did talk to him and I told him, I said, you are stifling this woman by not letting her show up who she is. And if you want the full Jen that you asked for, you're going to have to let her be her.
Yeah.
So they did. And she wore the black leather vest and she had her sleeves on and she was phenomenal. So you just embrace your styles and get comfortable with who you are.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to go on the stage with.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And I feel like that is the key to pretty much everything in life, right? Embracing your style, your authenticity, bringing that to the stage. And those are often the things that we might feel most vulnerable about or most afraid to share. But the more that we lean into that and speak our truth to what we were talking about earlier, the more powerfully we connect with our audience. So
Exactly.
yeah. Tell everyone, Mary, where can people go to connect with you? How can they learn more about your work?
I am everywhere. It's just maryvandorn.com.
Amazing.
Or Instagram, LinkedIn. That's all. Mary Van Dorn.
And you travel the world. You have fun adventures that you share on your social. Your daughter Maggie's doing really cool things in the podcasting sphere too. And so it's fun to see what you all are doing and helping a lot of people claim and own their voice.
Yes, in many ways.
So yeah. Thank you for being here. I love you so much. It's so fun to have this conversation. So please go connect with Mary. And her website or social will link all of that in the show notes. And I want to thank you, as always, for being a listener of the podcast. Remember to trust yourself on your path to success. Your desires are green lights, leading you and everyone around you to a brighter future. I'll see you on our next episode.